I didn't mean to learn Andrew's secret. If I'd left work 5 minutes earlier that night, or if I hadn't gone back upstairs for my forgotten jacket, my life would probably still be simple. Instead, I saw something I wasn't supposed to see, and once you know something like that about someone, there's no unseeing it. Andrew and I weren't close back then. We were friendly, sure, but in that polite, surface-level way. Same office, different departments. Same elevator every morning. Same awkward nods, occasional small talk about deadlines or the weather. He was one of those guys everyone liked, but no one really knew. Tall, quiet, always put together. The kind of calm that makes you assume nothing messy could possibly exist underneath. I used to think he was a little boring, if I'm being honest. That changed on a Thursday night in early October. The office had emptied out faster than usual. Rain was coming down hard, streaking the windows and turning the city into a blur of lights and reflections. I'd stayed late finishing a presentation, headphones in, completely in my own world. When I finally shut down my computer, the floor was almost silent. I remember checking my phone, groaning when I realized I'd left my jacket in the break room upstairs. I considered just running to the car and dealing with the cold, but the rain convinced me otherwise, so I took the stairs back up instead of waiting for the elevator again. That decision still feels ridiculous now, like fate wrapped up in something completely ordinary. As I got closer to the break room, I heard voices. Not loud, low, tense. I slowed down without really thinking about it, my steps quiet against the carpet. I recognized Andrew's voice immediately. Calm, but strained in a way I'd never heard before. "I can't keep doing this," he said. There was someone else with him, a man I didn't recognize. Older, confident voice. "The kind that didn't rush. You said that last time," the man replied. "And the time before that." I stopped just short of the doorway. I should have turned around. I know that. But something in Andrew's tone, tight, almost breaking, kept me frozen in place. "This isn't what I want," Andrew said. "I'm tired of pretending it doesn't affect me." There was a pause. I could picture Andrew in my head even without seeing him. Jaw clenched, hands probably shoved into his pockets the way he always did when he was uncomfortable. Then the other man laughed, not cruelly, almost fondly. "You're the one who didn't want anyone at work to know," he said. "I'm just respecting that." My stomach dropped at work. No, the pieces didn't fully click yet, but my pulse had already started to pick up. "I know," Andrew said quietly, "but it's getting harder. Especially when people assume things. When they talk." "Daniel?" the man asked suddenly. My heart slammed into my ribs. For half a second, I thought he'd somehow seen me, that I'd been caught standing there like an idiot. But then Andrew answered. "No," he said. "Not him. Just everyone." My name in Andrew's mouth in that conversation, it hit me harder than it should have. I leaned back against the wall, breathing slowly, telling myself I hadn't heard enough to mean anything. And then I did the one thing that made it impossible to pretend later. I stepped forward. The break room door was open. Andrew stood near the counter, his back half turned to me. When he saw me, the color drained from his face so fast, it was almost shocking. The other man turned too, eyes narrowing slightly as he took me in. "Daniel," Andrew said. My name sounded different now. Exposed. I started, then stopped. My jacket sat right there on the chair. "Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt." The lie felt thin. Andrew knew it. I knew it. The silence between us stretched, thick and uncomfortable. The other man glanced between us, then smiled, like he understood everything instantly. "I'll go," he said easily, grabbing his coat. "We'll talk later." Andrew didn't answer. He just watched him leave. When the door closed, the room felt too small. I heard some of it. I admitted. My chest was tight. I wasn't trying to. I swear. Andrew didn't look angry. He looked scared. And that was the moment I realized whatever I'd just walked into, it wasn't just a secret. It was a fault line. And I was standing right on it. Neither of us spoke for a few seconds. The hum of the refrigerator suddenly felt deafening, like it was mocking the silence between us. Andrew stared at the counter. jaw tight, shoulders tense, like he was bracing for something. "I won't tell anyone," I said finally. It came out fast, instinctive. "Whatever you think I heard, I won't say a word." He let out a breath that sounded more like a crack than a sigh. "You shouldn't have heard anything at all." "I know." I shifted my weight, suddenly very aware of how close we were. "I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I was just grabbing my jacket." He nodded once. Still didn't look at me. For a moment, I thought that would be it. Awkward agreement, mutual avoidance, then we'd both pretend this never happened. That's what I wanted. Honestly, secrets have weight, and I hadn't asked to carry his. But Andrew surprised me. "You heard enough, didn't you?" he asked quietly. I hesitated. Lying now felt pointless. "Enough to know it's complicated." That made him laugh, short and humorless. That's one way to put it. He finally turned to face me. Up close, I noticed things I never had before. The dark circles under his eyes. The way his hands trembled just slightly before he clenched them into fists. "I'm not out," he said, like ripping off a bandage. "At work, to my family, to most people." I nodded slowly. "Okay. And that guy," he stopped himself, swallowing. "He's not just a mistake." Something shifted in my chest at that. Not jealousy. At least I didn't think so. More like a sudden, uncomfortable awareness that Andrew's life was a lot messier than I'd assumed. "I don't need details," I said quickly. "Really, I just want you to know I'm not judging you." He studied my face like he was searching for cracks. "Why are you being nice about this?" I shrugged, trying to keep it light. "Because everyone deserves one person who doesn't make things harder." The words hung between us, heavier than I'd intended. Andrew looked away again, shaking his head. "You don't even know me." "Maybe not," I said, "but I know what it's like to feel boxed in." That got his attention. His eyes flicked back to mine. "You do?" I almost laughed. If only he knew. "More than you think." Another silence settled in, but this one felt different, less sharp. Like something was easing. "I should go," he said eventually. "Before this gets any more awkward." "Yeah," I agreed, "probably a good idea." I grabbed my jacket and slung it over my arm. As I turned toward the door, Andrew spoke again. "Daniel?" I stopped. "Thank you," he said. His voice was quieter now, honest, "for not making this worse." I met his eyes and nodded. Anytime. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The next few weeks were strange. Subtly, quietly strange. Andrew and I started running into each other more. At the coffee machine, in the elevator, during late meetings. Nothing obvious. But there was a new awareness between us. Like an invisible thread pulling our attention back to each other. Sometimes he'd catch my eye and look away too fast. Other times he'd hold my gaze just a second longer than necessary. I found myself noticing the little things. How his voice softened when he was tired. How he rubbed the back of his neck when he was thinking. And then there was the tension. Unspoken, but always there. One night we ended up alone in the elevator together after another late workday. The building was quiet. Lights dimmed. The city glowing outside the glass walls. "Rough day?" I asked, mostly to fill the silence. He nodded. "Yeah. You?" "Same." The elevator hummed downward, floor numbers ticking by slowly. "I keep thinking about that night," Andrew said suddenly. My heart skipped. "Me too." He glanced at me, then back at the doors. "I was terrified you'd look at me differently after." I swallowed. "I don't." "That's the problem," he said softly. Before I could ask what he meant, the elevator dinged and the door slid open. The moment shattered, leaving the words hanging between us like a promise. Or a warning. As we stepped out into the lobby, I realized something unsettling. Whatever secret I'd stumbled into that night, it wasn't just tying me to Andrew anymore. It was pulling us closer. And I wasn't sure either of us knew how to stop it. After that elevator ride, things stopped feeling accidental. Andrew started finding reasons to be near me. Or maybe I just started noticing the reasons he always had. He'd time his coffee breaks with mine. Ask my opinion on things he definitely didn't need help with. Sit a little closer than necessary in meetings when there were plenty of empty chairs. None of it crossed a line. That was the problem. Everything stayed just this side of plausible. And it drove me insane. I told myself it was just proximity. Shared tension. The residue of that night in the break room. But late at night, lying in bed, my thoughts always circled back to him. to the way his voice had sounded when he said my name, to the look on his face when he realized I knew something real about him. Secrets do that. They blur boundaries. One Friday, about a month later, the office went out for drinks. Some milestone celebration I barely paid attention to. Loud bar, dim lights, the kind of place where conversations blur together and everyone loosens up just enough to say things they normally wouldn't. I almost didn't go. Andrew almost didn't either. We both showed up anyway. He stood at the bar when I arrived, sleeves rolled up, shoulders tense like he wasn't sure he belonged there. When he saw me, something in his posture softened. That tiny reaction, so small no one else would have noticed, sent a stupid jolt of satisfaction through me. "Hey," he said, "hey." We ordered drinks, stood side by side, not quite touching. The noise around us made the silence between us feel louder somehow. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded, then shook his head. "Not really." I waited. I'd learned by now that pushing him shut things down. "This place," he said, glancing around, "makes me feel visible." I understood immediately. "We can leave." His head snapped toward me. "You don't have to." "I want to," I said. And I realized it was true. We slipped out without saying goodbye to anyone, the cool night air hitting us like a reset. The city felt quieter outside the bar, like it was giving us space. We walked without a destination, hands shoved into pockets, steps falling into an easy rhythm. "Can I ask you something?" Andrew said, "Yeah, why me?" He looked at me now, really looked. "You could have distanced yourself, pretended none of that happened. Most people would." I thought about that, about how much easier it would have been. "Because you trusted me without meaning to," I said. And I didn't want to break that. His expression shifted, something unguarded flickering across his face. "You make it hard to keep walls up. You know that?" My chest tightened. "You're not doing a great job of it either." We stopped walking. The streetlight above us buzzed softly, casting his face in warm gold. For a second, neither of us moved. "I think about you," Andrew admitted, barely louder than the city hum. "More than I should." My heart pounded. "Me too." The words felt dangerous. Honest. Necessary. He laughed quietly, shaking his head. "This is a bad idea." "Probably," I said. "Doesn't feel like one, though." He stepped closer, not touching. Just close enough that I could feel his warmth. Smell the faint trace of whatever cologne he wore. My breath caught, and I didn't try to hide it. "This can't go anywhere," he said, voice tight. "You know that." "I know," I replied. And that's when he kissed me. It wasn't dramatic. No sweeping motion or sudden grab. Just his forehead brushing mine first, like he was giving me time to pull away. I didn't. When his lips met mine, it was hesitant, almost careful, like we both understood exactly how much this could cost him. The kiss didn't last long. A few seconds, maybe less. But when he pulled back, his eyes were dark, conflicted, alive in a way I'd never seen before. "I can't," he whispered. "I know." I said again, even though every part of me wanted to say don't stop. He stepped back, putting space between us, breathing hard. "I'm sorry. Don't be." We stood there, shaken, knowing something fundamental had shifted. That night didn't start anything, but it broke something open. And once it was open, neither of us could pretend anymore. The next Monday was brutal. Not because anything obvious happened, but because nothing did. Andrew and I slipped back into our routines like professionals. Same meetings, same polite smiles, same careful distance. If anyone was watching, they would have seen nothing more than two coworkers doing their jobs. But everything felt louder now, sharper. Every time he passed my desk, I felt it. Every time he said my name in that neutral, work-appropriate tone, it landed wrong. Too intimate for what we were pretending this was. We never talked about the kiss. Not that week. Not the next. Instead, we communicated in glances. In pauses that lingered too long. in the way Andrew would stop himself from saying something, lips parting before he caught himself. It was exhausting. One evening, about 2 weeks later, I stayed late again. Not on purpose, just one of those nights where work piles up faster than you expect. By the time I shut down my computer, the office was nearly empty. I stood up, stretched, and nearly jumped out of my skin when I heard a voice behind me. "Still here?" Andrew. He was leaning against the cubicle wall, jacket already on, tie loosened. He looked tired, real tired. "Yeah," I said. "You too?" He nodded. Couldn't focus at home lately. Something in the way he said it told me exactly why. We stood there, neither of us moving toward the elevator. "Do you want to grab coffee?" he asked finally. "Not a bar, just coffee." I studied his face. This wasn't avoidance, this was him choosing something. "Okay," I said. The cafe across the street was nearly empty, warm, and quiet, all soft lighting and low music. We sat at a small table by the window, hands wrapped around mugs we barely drank from. For a while, we talked about safe things. Work, deadlines, a stupid client story. It almost felt normal. Almost. I meant what I said, Andrew finally murmured. That night. About this being a bad idea. "I know," I replied. "I meant what I said, too." He exhaled slowly. "I've spent years keeping parts of my life separate, controlled, manageable." He looked up at me. "And then you happened. I felt that low in my chest. I didn't mean to." "I know." A small smile tugged at his mouth. "That's what scares me." He told me things that night. Not everything, but enough. About expectations. About the version of himself everyone knew. About how tiring it was to constantly edit his own life. I didn't interrupt. I didn't try to fix it. I just listened. When we finally stood to leave, the air between us felt different. Heavier, but clearer. Outside, under the streetlights, he stopped me. "I can't promise anything," he said. "I don't know where this goes. I don't even know if I'm brave enough." I met his eyes. "I'm not asking for promises." That honesty seemed to undo him more than anything else. He reached out then. Not for my hand, but my wrist. Grounding. Real. "We should be careful," he said. Yeah. I agreed. "We should." He didn't let go right away. And that was when I realized the truth we'd both been avoiding. The secret didn't just bind us because I knew it. It bound us because, for the first time, Andrew didn't feel alone with it. And neither did I. After that night, everything became quieter. Not easier, just quieter. Like we'd both agreed, without saying it out loud, to stop fighting the pull and start managing it instead. Andrew and I didn't text. We didn't call. Whatever this was, it lived in the spaces between us. Late evenings at work, chance encounters that were no longer accidents, coffee breaks that stretched longer than they should have. And somehow, that restraint made it worse. I noticed how careful Andrew was with me, how he'd angle his body away if someone walked by, how his voice stayed neutral in public, even when his eyes didn't. He was constantly measuring risk, calculating consequences. I pretended I didn't mind. But one night, I cracked. It was raining again. Hard, relentless, the kind of rain that soaks through everything. I'd had a long day, the kind where every small thing feels personal. And when I stepped out of the building, Andrew was there under the awning, staring out at the street like he was waiting for something to give. "Did you drive?" I asked. He shook his head. "Train." "Come on," I said before I could overthink it. "I'll take you home." He hesitated. I could see it. Him weighing whether this crossed a line we'd drawn without really defining. Then he nodded. The car ride was quiet at first. The rain filled the silence, drumming against the windshield. Streetlights blurred into long streaks of gold and white. "You're tense," I said. "So are you," he replied. Fair. His apartment was modest, clean, carefully neutral. Like someone had arranged it to avoid leaving fingerprints. When I stepped inside, I felt like I was seeing a private version of him I hadn't earned yet. "You want a drink?" he asked. "Sure." He handed me a beer. Our fingers brushed. Just barely. The contact lingered in my head longer than it should have. We sat on opposite ends of the couch at first. Space between us like a rule neither of us wanted to acknowledge. "I keep thinking," Andrew said quietly, staring at the floor, "that if you hadn't walked in that night, none of this would exist." "And does that make you wish I hadn't?" I asked. He looked at me then. Really looked. "No?" The word landed heavy. He shifted closer, not touching, just close enough that I could feel the heat of him. "I hate how much I want this," he admitted. "How easy it feels with you." My throat tightened. "You don't have to hate it," he let out a bitter laugh. "That's easy for you to say." I leaned in, slow, giving him time. "Then tell me to leave." He didn't. Instead, he closed the distance. This kiss wasn't hesitant. It wasn't careful. It was months of restraint, breaking all at once, his hands gripping my jacket, my fingers sliding into his hair like they'd always known where to go. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. "This changes things," he said. "I know," I replied. He rested his forehead against mine. "I'm scared." "So am I," I admitted. "But I don't regret it. Neither did he. That night, we crossed a line we both knew we couldn't uncross, and lying awake later, staring at his ceiling while he slept beside me, I understood something with painful clarity. The secret didn't just connect us anymore, it owned us. And sooner or later, it was going to demand a price. The morning after felt fragile. Andrew woke up first. I knew that because I felt him shift beside me, careful not to wake me, like he was afraid the slightest movement might shatter whatever we'd done. I kept my eyes closed, not pretending to sleep so much as giving us both a few more seconds before reality stepped back in. When I finally opened them, he was sitting on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. "Hey," I said softly. He turned, relief flickering across his face before worry rushed back in to replace it. "Hey." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The quiet wasn't awkward. It was heavy, thoughtful. "I didn't plan this," he said. "Any of it." "I know. And I don't regret it," he added quickly, like he was afraid I might assume otherwise. "That's what scares me." I sat up, the sheet pooling around my waist. "You don't have to decide everything today." He exhaled, tension easing just a fraction. "You're good at saying the right thing." "I'm just saying what I'd want to hear." That earned a small, real smile. We didn't linger. No lazy morning, no pretending this was something simple. We got dressed, brushed our teeth side by side without touching, like we were both afraid of pushing too far too fast. At the door, he hesitated. "This doesn't become nothing, right?" he asked quietly. I met his eyes. "Only if you want it to." "I don't," he said immediately. Then softer. "I just don't know what it becomes." "Then we figure it out," I said. "One step at a time." He nodded, like he was committing that sentence to memory. Work was tense. We didn't arrive together. Didn't leave together. Barely spoke all day. But every time our eyes met across a room, something unspoken passed between us. Acknowledgement, connection, a shared understanding that something real now existed beneath the surface. By the end of the week, the pressure was building again. It broke on a Wednesday afternoon, in the least dramatic way possible. We were alone in a conference room, reviewing a project that required both our departments. The door was closed, the blinds half drawn. The hum of the projector filled the space. Andrew cleared his throat. I told him I ended it. My heart stuttered. "The guy from before?" He nodded. "It wasn't fair. To him, or to you." Something warm and dangerous spread through my chest. "Andrew, you didn't have to." "I wanted to," he interrupted. His voice was steady, but his hands weren't. "I don't want half things anymore." I stood slowly, crossing the space between us. Not touching, just close. "This still doesn't mean you owe me anything," I said. "I know," he replied, "but it means I'm choosing something." I searched his face, seeing fear there, yes, but also resolve. "We still need to be careful," he added. I smiled softly. We always were. That afternoon didn't end with a kiss, or a confession, or a dramatic turning point. But something shifted again, this time forward. The secret still existed, still mattered. But now, instead of pressing us apart or pulling us recklessly together, it was doing something new. It was forcing Andrew to choose himself, and somehow, impossibly, he was letting me stand close while he did. The first real crack didn't come from us. It came from outside. A rumor started the way they always do, quietly, without a source, slipping through the office like background noise you don't notice until it's too loud to ignore. Someone had seen Andrew with a man downtown. Someone else had noticed how often he stayed late, how he'd stopped talking about dating women altogether. No one said anything directly, not to him, not to me, but I felt it in the glances, in the way conversations paused when Andrew walked by, in the subtle shift of tone when his name came up. Andrew felt it too. He showed up at my place one night without texting first. Just knocked. Once. Firm but uncertain. When I opened the door, I knew immediately something was wrong. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside. He didn't take his jacket off, just stood there, pacing like a caged thought. "Someone asked me today if I was seeing anyone. That doesn't sound so bad," I said gently. They followed it with, "Anyone we'd know." "Ah," I laughed it off. He continued. "But it scared me more than I expected." I waited. This wasn't about reassurance. This was about something heavier. "I've lived my whole life making sure no one asked the wrong questions," he said, "and now they are." I moved closer. "What do you want to do?" He stopped pacing and looked at me, eyes raw. "I don't want to lose you." The words landed harder than any confession we'd shared so far. "You're not going to," I said quietly. "But you don't have to burn your life down for me either." He let out a shaky laugh. "You keep giving me exits, because I don't want you to resent me." He stepped closer, finally close enough to touch. He didn't. Just stood there, searching my face. "What if I don't want the exit?" he asked. My chest tightened. "Then stay." That night, we talked longer than we ever had. About consequences. About fear. About what it would mean if the secret stopped being one. Andrew didn't make a grand declaration. He didn't suddenly become fearless. But he did something quieter and braver. He told one person, a friend he'd known since college, someone outside work, someone safe. When he told me afterward, his hands were still shaking, but his eyes were clear. "She didn't walk away," he said, almost stunned. "She hugged me." I smiled. "People can surprise you. So can I," he said softly. Weeks later, the rumor died the way rumors do. Starved of drama, Andrew didn't confirm anything. He didn't deny it either, and somehow that balance held. We were still careful, still private, but no longer hiding from each other. The secret that once felt like a chain had become something else entirely, not gone, not harmless, but shared. And one quiet evening, as we sat together on my couch, Andrew leaned his head against my shoulder and said, almost to himself, "I don't feel trapped anymore." That was when I knew, whatever this was, whatever it would become, it had already changed us both. And for the first time since the night I overheard something I was never meant to hear, I didn't wish I could go back. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The real turning point didn't come with, not late, not secretly, just dinner, at a place near the office where half our coworkers had been at one time or another. I looked at him for a long second. "Like, actually dinner?" He nodded, calm, steady, nervous, but not backing away. "Yeah, if that's okay." It was more than okay. It was terrifying. We didn't arrive together, but we walked in within minutes of each other. When he spotted me, his shoulders relaxed. In that way I'd come to recognize as relief. We chose a table near the window. Not hidden. Not center stage either. Just normal. A couple people from work walked by. One waved. Andrew waved back. No one stared. No one whispered. The world didn't end. Halfway through the meal, Andrew reached across the table and took my hand. Just like that. No drama. No speech. I felt my chest tighten. Not with fear, but with something like release. Later, as we walked out into the cool night air, he laughed under his breath. I spent years building this thing in my head, this catastrophe. And? I asked. And it turns out the scariest part was being alone with it. He stopped on the sidewalk and turned to me. That night you overheard me. He shook his head. I hated it at first. I felt exposed, out of control. I know. But now? He met my eyes. Now I think it saved me from hiding forever. I didn't say anything. I just pulled him into a hug, right there on the street. And this time, he didn't hesitate. His arms wrapped around me like it was the most natural thing in the world. Months later, someone new at work asked how we met. Andrew answered before I could. Long story, he said, smiling at me. But he knows me better than anyone, and he was right. I became a witness to his truth before I became part of his life. I saw him at his most guarded, most afraid. And somehow, instead of tearing us apart, that secret did the opposite. It forced honesty. It forced choice. It forced closeness neither of us had planned. Love didn't start with fireworks or certainty. It started with a secret, and it bound us. Not in fear, but in trust.